thought I had it figured out. Believed in us, we were meant to be, no doubt. A teenage love, everybody else could see the way we were, living in a fantasy. When I kiss her, I don't know where we're going. I don't know at all. I don't know how we're growing. I'll be moving on. I'll be moving on. Gotta let it go. Living on my own, making me strong. Now I wanna show I can hold my own. See how much I've grown. Better off alone, baby. I don't do it all alone. So sorry for the heartache and saying goodbye, for wasting your time, for wasting your time. I don't know how we're growing. I'll be moving on. I'll be moving on. Gotta let it go. Living on my own, making me strong. Now I wanna show I can hold my own. See how much I've grown. Better off alone, baby. I don't do it all alone.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of my folks from around the world across X, Twitch, LinkedIn, almost at Twitter again, YouTube, wherever you are. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Friday morning's Tea with a Hacker. I already had my tea. I'm a little late getting started this morning. Somebody put a 8:30 meeting on my calendar. I'm not complaining. I'll talk about it here in a little bit, but I had to like postpone the stream by an hour to kind of do that. So hopefully everybody's enjoying their Friday morning, whether you're just coming into work, whether you're getting ready to get off of work, whether you're coming up at the end of the day. Thank you so much for tuning in this Friday morning. I don't have tea. Like I said, I already finished my tea, but I've already started my water routine. So enjoy some water or some tea with me, or tea with a hacker without some tea. I already drank the tea. I should have made more while I was down there. Anyway, as you can tell, I've already had my caffeine, and I've already been getting started on the meeting, so my mind is like going a million miles an hour. I had a meeting this morning at 8:30, so like an hour ago, and it's one of those where I don't ever say no. And when we talk about moderation, it's okay to have some of those moments in your professional world where you don't say no. And I'll talk about that one here in a little bit, right? I'll talk about that here, but I wanted to cover a couple more things. You see, I'm like super excited to talk about. This is our Friday morning AMA stream. The reason we do this stream in the morning, the reason we do it across all the different platforms, because we have viewers from all across the different platforms. And we're very thankful to Twitch for opening up their partner status to allow us to stream multiple on all the platforms. That way we can reach everybody wherever they want to be, so that you can talk to me and I can talk to you, and we can answer some of your questions about cyber. Whether you're an entry level, whether you're experienced executive, whether you're red team, blue team, GRC, it doesn't really matter. I've been there, done it all. I've led teams, built teams, done the work. You know, happy to answer any questions that you've got, whether they're tactically, operationally, you know, whether it's getting into your career, whether you're experienced career. Please feel free at any point in time to drop your question in chat at any point in time. And typically what happens if somebody sees a question in chat, one of the moderators will grab it, push the question up onto screen just like that, and then we'll see it. Like, oh, hi, it's good to see you again too, Nathan. Always happy to see my folks over on YouTube. Glad to see you. They'll push the question up on screen, we will answer it, and then we will see you from there. And Security Live hopping into to chat. Good to see you again, John. Good to see you. Hopefully everything's... John, make sure you go check out John's streams. John is... you know, good friend of mine. We worked together while we were at Abbott together. He helped me build my first Splunk environment over there at Abbott, and he does some awesome streams. So do make sure you go check out John's stream as well. It's good to see you, buddy. As I mentioned, we do have moderators in chat. Moderators are here to keep chat free of all racist, sexist, misogynistic, and otherwise toxic behavior. They are not here, however, to stifle chat whatsoever. Again, this gets back to we encourage you to say whatever's on your mind. You can disagree with me. We highly encourage you to disagree with me if you feel the need to disagree with me. We love civil discourse. We just always ask that you be respectful. That's always the ask. Be respectful. Essence, good to see you over on LinkedIn as well. I wish I had a chatbot integration for LinkedIn so I could push, LinkedIn messages up on screen, but alas, we don't. That's okay. It is what it is. So anyway, up early this morning for a meeting, not for a stream, unfortunately. And I mentioned that there are just some times where I don't say no. And one of those times is when friends ask me to come speak at their company all hands. And that's where I was at this morning. Somebody had asked me to come speak on kind of the topic of cybersecurity, kind of what I was seeing in the GRC space. This morning it was GRC related. What I was seeing in the AI space, especially since I'm having more and more conversations around AI. And so the reason I keep bringing this up is if you go back to streams a year, 2 years ago, I'd say as recently as a year ago, 2 years ago, I was incredibly bearish on AI. I was very, very down on AI. I just didn't think that we were there yet, that, there wasn't enough there when it came to talking about AI. And my opinion on that has changed pretty drastically from a lot of the things that we've seen. So I'm having more and more conversations with AI. I always knew that it would be a thing that would be here to stay. Wasn't always sure when it would happen or how soon it would kind of come to fruition, but it has. And now we just need to talk about it much, much more than we have been in the past. So, anyway, as always, like I said, I try to find, whenever friends ask me to come and speak at their company all hands, I absolutely love to do that, and I love to talk to folks about what's happening in cyber. Speaking of what's happening in cyber, Hussein, thank you so very much. It's good to see you as well. Much love from South Africa. I want to make it down to Cape Town. I am dying to go down to Cape Town. I think Cape Town would be so much fun to visit. I spent some time in Africa. I've been to Djibouti. I've been to Cape Verde Islands. I've been to Seychelles. So love going to see lots of different awesome places over in Africa. Hey Neil, I've been told to use SQL Map and find vulnerable websites, 5 of them, but I can't find any. But my coworkers have all found 5. What do I do? I've been using this dork site. This dork. Oh, gotcha. That's a really so let me infer a couple things from your question, right? So you've got friends who have told you to use SQL Map and just randomly scan websites out on the internet. Is that what I'm getting from you? Because if that's what I'm getting from you, that is absolutely not the right way to do it. I get unsolicited bug bounty requests from random researchers all over the internet daily. Kid you not, right? And it is unequivocally obvious when they are doing exactly what it is that you're doing, and they're popping in some random scanner and scanning a bunch of random stuff out there on the internet. And then invariably, this is what I love too. Invariably, the things that I get are all critical. Think about that for a minute. The things that I get are always the worst things that are going to destroy my company. All the time. Every single time. It doesn't matter. They're always the worst, right? And so that is absolutely wrong. You should tell your coworkers that they are absolutely wrong. You should not be finding vulnerable websites, finding 5 of them, and doing anything with that data whatsoever. You should not be scanning random websites whatsoever. There are right ways to go about doing that, right? Bug bounty programs are the right way to go about doing it, right? You should be using platforms like BugCrowd, HackerOne, right? Platforms like that. But please, 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 please don't go out and randomly scan the internet for, like, just don't do that. That's just bad. The dork that you're using, right? That's one dork that exists out there, right? There's several dorks that exist out there. I couldn't tell you whether that one was good or bad. There's so many of them that exist out there. So, if you can't, like I said, I can't emphasize this enough. You shouldn't be doing that if you're trying to adhere to this definition of ethical, whether it's for an assignment or not, whether it's, like I said, for whatever reason or not. Go do it a legitimate way and don't just randomly scan the internet for stuff. Hey, Jamie over on LinkedIn. Good to see you. Better late than never. Good morning, team. Yes, it is, Jamie. It is good to see you as well. Extender over on Twitch says, any advice on the cyber interview today? A bit nervous and excited. It's an analyst job, beginner level, proving a bit of consulting and providing a bit of consulting and vulnerability management. Yeah. My biggest advice to interviews, first and foremost, know your target audience. If you come to any of my coaching sessions, I do coaching sessions for interview prep. So, if you're seeing this and you've got an interview coming up, you can always book time with me and I'll help you prep for your interview. You can hit !coaching in chat to get access to my coaching, right? The biggest thing when it comes to interview prep, and this is what I'll tell you, right? You don't have to book time for me to get this same advice. I'll tell you here right now. The biggest thing to do is to know your audience. Who are you talking to? And I don't mean yes, it's helpful to know whether you're talking to Neil or Bob or Jim or somebody like that, right? But are they analysts? Are they business people? Are they the CISO? Are they executives? Are they IT folks? What's their technical knowledge? What's their business knowledge? What are they in charge of, right? Understand your audience. I know that this floors a lot of people, right? Because they're like, well, Neil, that's not technical. No, it's not. Right? But especially when you're doing vulnerability management and you're providing a bit of that consulting, you're going to need to know who that audience is, how to talk to them. What are the things you can say? What are the things you can't say? What are the things you're supposed to say? How are you supposed to drive home that they need to fix those vulnerabilities? Because the biggest problem, this may come to shock most of you. The biggest problem with vulnerability management isn't actually the vulnerability. What did Neil just say? Did Neil say the vulnerability wasn't important? I think Neil might have. Shh. It is actually the most important thing about vulnerability management is actually your ability to communicate with the business owners who have that vulnerability and be able to provide that information to them. That's the most important part, right? And so, understanding who you're talking to during the interview process, how to communicate with them, how to better understand how they need to be communicated to, what's important to them from a vulnerability perspective. Those are things that are so ridiculously important. Then secondarily to that, especially if you're going into a vulnerability management type of role, beginner or not, just make sure that you understand the common things that are associated, right, with vulnerabilities. Do you understand CVSS scores? Both, the weighted ones and the non-weighted ones, right? What do you know about NVD, right? Not VD, NVD, right? What do you know about all that stuff, right? What do you know about like how vulnerability scanners work? Do you know the different types of vulnerability scanners that exist out there? Yada, 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 right? All that type of stuff. Like understand the basics. Like during an interview is a time, and I'll use golf as an example. I see Brandon dropping into to chat. Hey, Brandon, how's it going? Good to see you again this morning. You'll hear me reference more and more golf analogies because I was actually talking with the CEO, a founder of a company yesterday, and we were chatting, and we were talking about golf analogies. And the more I talk about what my professional life has influenced golf and what golf has influenced back into my professional life, it's really amazing the parallels between the two, right? When I go to a tournament, I don't work on my swing the day of the tournament, right? That's the big day. I either know it or I don't know it when I show up for a tournament. Period. Dot. End of discussion. If you failed to prep the days leading up to the tournament, it will reflect on tournament day. Tournament day is not the day to be cramming for the big exam, right? So don't try to stress on interview day to cram in all the big nuggets of complicated data. When I go to the range on tournament day, you know what I do? I work on my wedges. I work on my swing thought. I work on my alignment, right? The basics, the fundamentals, and I do 50% shots just to find the tempo. That's what you should be doing on tournament day. Right? You should wake up, have a good breakfast, go to the gym, get a good workout in, have your normal routine, and then work on the tempo, work on the basics, right? That's what's going to help you succeed during an interview. I love it. Yeah. However, it don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. You develop the swing ahead of time, right? Like, I mean, this gets back to what we always talk about. You should always be learning. I've got a poster over there. You can't see it because the camera's pointed in this direction. But that poster right there has got a tagline on it that says, always be ready. Always be ready. That is absolutely, like, I will die on that cross, right? We talk about being forever learners in cybersecurity, but I think we forget that as being like the things that we learn are to put us into a place to always be ready. One of the things that my wife dotes upon me is that at any point in time, she or anybody else can come ask me any question about anything cybersecurity related, and I have an answer. And it's not that I'm the smartest. It's not that I'm the best. It's not that I spend countless hours, studying cybersecurity. But I'm always ready, and I always make sure that I know the answers that are most pressing to the world around me, right? And so, like, that's what I would encourage you is if you're out there doing try hack me's, if you're out there doing hack the boxes, if you're out there doing, over the wire like Fix It 42 is doing, right? You're doing that stuff. Don't just do it monotonously, right? And this is another golf analogy that I'll pull in here, right? It's hard for me. I've got a simulator that we built here in the house. And so it's super easy for me to just go over there and bang out 200, 300, 400 balls in a day, just mindlessly not even thinking about it, right? But that doesn't actually help my swing. That doesn't actually help my game. You know what helps my game? If I go in there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit 100 balls with this club at this target, and I'm going to try for a percentage to get them on target every single time. Practice with a purpose. If you're doing over the wire, if you're doing try hack, if you're doing hack the box, if you're studying for a cert, study with a purpose. And the purpose isn't, let me rephrase this, the purpose isn't just so you can get a certification. Practice with a purpose. That way, when you're ready for game day, you're ready for game day. Great question. I love it. Good luck on your interview, Extender. Interview days are always fun days. Interview days are always fun days. Apricot Soda over on YouTube says, Neil, I don't know who Neil is, but my name's Neil. 7 years in cybersecurity, CISSP, and burnt out. Burnt out. Looking for a new job, but unsure what's next. Repeatable tasks aren't for me as I get bored. Have you experienced this in your career? More times than I can count. I did an entire video on burnout. I don't know if a mod or one of the VIPs wants to go grab the burnout video, but I've done a burnout video and it's over on YouTube. Burnout is undoubtedly real. Burnout is undoubtedly real. Make no mistake about it. And here's the thing about burnout. Essence, I do see your question on LinkedIn. I'll get to it after this one. It does not matter where you are in your career. It does not matter whether you're a new person coming into this space or whether you've been in it for 20 plus years. Everybody is a victim to burnout at some point in time. It is the nature of what we do, right? It's the nature of what we do. The reason for that is because we are always on. We are always on. We're always getting, like, if you're on the blue team, you are getting attacked every day by the adversary, and you have to defend an enterprise that is ungrateful for your existence, deprives you of money and resources, doesn't understand the risk the same way that you do, doesn't see the world the same way that you do, and has no concept of the bad guys that you're fighting on a day-to-day basis. Like it or not, that is the reality of working in cybersecurity in a large enterprise. Right? Now, you may get lucky and you may work for an organization that cares enough about security to provide you all of those things, but that doesn't change the fact that you get burnt out. You talk about, listen, Apricot, you talk about, repeatable task. Everything in cyber is repeatable. Pen testing is repeatable. Yes, even pen testing is repeatable. The purist and the nihilist and the zealots of pen testing will say, no, I'm an artist. I create art with my pen testing. No, you don't. You get on there, you run Nmap, you run SQL map, you run 50 different scanners, and then you see what's out there, and then you pick up your first paintbrush to actually paint something. Come on, don't lie to us. Like, seriously. Like, that, if you hear a pen tester say, I create art, my pen testing is different because I use my imagination, I have to critically think about everything. No. Liar. You run a bunch of scanners, you get a bunch of results, and then you go, aha! I got a hammer for that nail. You know what you are? You're a dump truck driver. You get a scan result, you pull up with a dump truck, you drop your exploit, you hope you get a shell, and then you have a nice day. All right? Like it or not, that's what most pen testing is. Right? So and the reason I say that, right, is to dismantle some myths. I'm not, again, remember, 10 years in the NSA, offensive hacking for the United States government, right? Built and led multiple pen testing teams all the way up until, 2016 when I, joined, Abbott to lead their security team. All right? Pen testing and hacking have been my entire life, even when I was a kid hacking, universities. Okay? So I'm knocking on something that I've literally lived for decades. But I bring it up to say, right? Everything in security is repeatable. You know why it's repeatable? Because history repeats itself. That's a little bit cynical on my part, but hey, cynicism is what gets us by in the day. Right? Everything in cybersecurity is repeatable. I'm not sure what you think you're looking for if you're saying repeatable tasks aren't for me. Right? Maybe you should go do consulting, right? At least in consulting, you get to see different things on a daily basis. That's what I will say about consulting. At least you get to see different challenges. One of the reasons that I'll always talk about consulting as a great job opportunity is because consulting is a place where you get to see something different day in and day out, unequivocally. You'll see a different company, different challenges. Now, some of those challenges may look the same. It still looks like an authentication issue. Oh, it still looks like a password issue. Oh, it still looks like you got a poor vulnerability management program, right? All of that stuff may look the same, but at least you get to see different environments, right? So let's answer your question. Let's answer your question here a little bit, right? Looking for a new job, unsure what's next. Have you experienced this in your career? Yes, everybody has. It's not new. You should, let's talk about job hunting when you're in a weird spot, whether it's burnout, whether you hate your boss. Love you, Matt. Whether, you hate the company, whether you whatever the reason is, right? You decide that you want to move on. You should find out at its core what it is that you're moving on for. Are you moving on for money? Yes, I said it. Let's all say it out loud. It's absolutely okay to move on for money. Don't let anybody in this industry bully you into thinking otherwise. Okay? Don't let anybody in this industry bully you into thinking otherwise. This is absolutely okay to move on for money. You got bills to pay. I got bills to pay, right? I got golf courses to go to. I got golf tournaments to win. I got golf clubs to buy. I got to have that money, right? My good looks, as attractive as I am, aren't going to get me all the golfing stuff that I want, right? So it's okay to admit that it's for money. It's also okay to admit that you're bored. It's also, this is going to floor a couple of you as well. It's also okay to admit that you're in over your head. Think about that one for a minute. Sometimes people change jobs because they took one and realized that they were in over their head. It's absolutely okay to do that. Right? Absolutely okay to do that. So what I'd say is step one is identify your why. Why are you changing jobs? Why are you changing jobs? Once you've identified why you're changing jobs, then I think you can really set forth to try to find it. But then if you're going to actually go through the process of trying to change jobs, now is a shitty time. Now is a shitty time to be trying to change job. There is no way around it. That's just Neil being Neil with you, right? If you have a job, let me say this in the most pointed, direct, I'm gonna put on my movie voice when I say this, right? I'm gonna look in the camera, right in your eyes. Yes, you, chat, whatever platform you're on, I'm looking at you. Chat, if you have a job right now, and you think you want to change jobs, unless you're getting utterly abused at your job, please do not go out on the job market right now. This is hands down the worst time to be out on the job market. I've been streaming for 4 years. And if you'd looked at a stream for 4 years ago, I was ranting and raving about how awesome the job market was. You can find any job you wanted to. It is literally the exact opposite of that today. The economies are down across the globe. Companies are being pickier. And you are not the special unicorn that you think you are. I know it's going to hurt some of your feelings, but it's the truth. And so if you have a job now, I would highly encourage you to find other ways to deal with your burnout than to quit your job and look for another one. You're going to be out there in the market with a lot of people who are also out there looking for a job. So, but if you do have to go out there in a job market, I would highly encourage you to leverage your network. Your networking is going to be the best way for you to get a job in this economy. Hope that helps. Let's try that again. I thought I was Joe Biden for a second there. We're not a political stream. That was just a cheap shot. No politics in chat. That was just a cheap shot. Doron over on LinkedIn says, thanks for coming back. We need you in the space. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Essence over on LinkedIn says, what are good foundational cybersecurity skills to build upon? Communication, 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 without a doubt. Please. Right? Please, for the love of all that is cyber, communication. Right? If you tuned into yesterday's stream, if you haven't checked it out, go check out yesterday's Sec Data Ops stream. I had John Moore, who's a CISO for a couple large companies, on the stream, and we talked about how he was a technical CISO, but he had to learn a lot of the business stuff because that's one of the skills that especially a lot of the technical folks who come up through the ranks, they have a tendency to fall off on and not understand as a lot of the business skills. So I would say communication, business skills, and networking 101. Networking 101. But great question. That is what is challenging right now for me. My apprenticeship ends next year, so I'm trying my hardest to build my LinkedIn presence and skill set before it went. Absolutely. Building your LinkedIn presence, especially if you're in an internship essence. If you're in an apprenticeship right now, sorry, not internship, an apprenticeship. Yes, building your LinkedIn presence is going to be massive. Going to be massive. Hands down, it's going to be massive. I can't stress this enough. Like, people don't really seem to understand in today's day and age, LinkedIn is, you can joke about LinkedIn all you want. As a matter of fact, you talk about LinkedIn being Facebook all you want. Ironically enough, LinkedIn sees this. If you actually go search for, LinkedIn algorithm, obviously you can tell that that's what I search because I'm obviously trying to maximize my LinkedIn algorithm. Please help me by engaging in my content, please, on LinkedIn. But anyway, LinkedIn talks about how they acknowledge that LinkedIn has become a little bit more like Facebook with a whole bunch of selfies and things like that. And so they've changed their algorithm to try to really get back to promoting the things that are super important from a LinkedIn professional network perspective. And so what does that tell you? It tells you that as much as you knock LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn has to go through its own changes. LinkedIn recognizes when it does things right or when it does things wrong, and they make changes to their algorithm to accommodate that, which means you, as an aspiring or an executive cybersecurity person, need to be paying attention to that stuff too, because that can affect you, Essence, and everybody else who's listening who are trying to build a LinkedIn presence. So if you're not actively researching how these social media companies, specifically things like LinkedIn, right, are doing their algorithm, then you're missing a key point of, hold on, you ready for this? Intelligence. And what are the things that help us find bad guys out there in the network? What are the things that help us find vulnerabilities? What are the things that help us find 0 days? Intelligence, right? So you're missing a piece of intelligence because you have some hell-bent desire to trash social media. So please go build your social media presence and interact with my content. I love you long time. Thank you very much. Saw one from Brandon. I want to answer one from Brandon because I love Brandon. Brandon's my brother from another mother. Miss you, buddy. Hope you're doing okay. I totally just pushed that off onto the wrong screen and totally forgot about it. It's over there. Quick question for you. What do you feel should be an IT budget, which includes the cybersecurity budget for a small, medium, large enterprise company? This is the quintessential question, right? How large should your cybersecurity budget be? I have done lots of studies of these in the past. I have done a ton of studies of these in the past. I think generally speaking, when we talk large enterprises, that are kind of around the 1 to 5 to 10 billion plus range, right? Most IT budgets are around 7%, single digit, 7% of company revenue. This is going to floor some of you. This is going to put it in perspective if you're not aware of this, right? So if your IT budget is 7%, most cybersecurity budgets are 7% of that 7%. So everybody pull out a calculator, either on your phone or on your computer, or something like that. I'll give you an example. Like Abbott, when I worked there, was $50 million. Do I have a calculator? I can probably pull one up over here on this other screen, right? So let's do a calculator. Here we go. We're going to do this on the screen with you, right? So 50. Oh my God, how many zeros is that? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Is that one? That's 50 million. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. That's 50 billion. Okay, 50 billion times 0.07, because that's 7%. So that is $3.5 billion for the IT budget, right? Multiply that by 7% again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Is that right? Oh God, I think I'm going the wrong way. I think I'm going the wrong way in numbers. Somebody do the math. Okay, so this is why I shouldn't be math, right? That's what it should be. That's never what it is. It's never, ever what it is, right? And Brian hit the nail on the head right there. All the things you could do if you had a 7% budget, sometimes usually end up hovering around 3%. Anywhere between 1 to 3% is where you typically end up being, right? So just because that's where the average, most, like, because I'll tell you this right now. I dare anybody to hear me say this on this stream and to walk in their boss's office, slam their fists out on the desk and say, I demand 7% of IT's budget for cybersecurity. You get laughed out of the room. You get laughed out of the room, right? It doesn't work like that. Right, this may come as a shocker to some of you, is that it doesn't work like that. They'll make you justify the business case and why you need this and why you need that and how are they going to get a return on investment and blah, 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 blah. Because at the end of the day, you're still just a cost center. You're still just a cost center. So I generally speaking, you should be about 7%. I think reality ends up being like anywhere from 1 to 3 is where it ends up being. But hey, to each their own. Like that's the struggle, honestly, at the end of the day, that I think is cybersecurity. Qui-Gon Jinn, MC Qui-Gon Jinn. How do you address the dilemma of patching? Patch it now and hope you don't have a failed patch and loss of productivity, or test and plan the patch, which takes 2 weeks, and take the risk you're not breached because you're vulnerable. Patching is and will always be a problem in every company and every enterprise. This is one of those times where, like, this is especially new for a lot of my new cybersecurity folks. You see this question, and I'm sure that there are some new cybersecurity folks from across the globe who look at this question and be like, screw the business, Neil, patch everything all the time. When that patch goes out, you patch the system. Raise your hand in chat if you're that person. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed. Raise your hand in chat if you're that person that you believe that as soon as the patch hits the airwaves at +1 minute from Microsoft's Patch Tuesday on Tuesday, you want to push patches on everything in the environment. Regardless of severity, regardless of impact to systems, you want to push that patch button. And I think that's normal. Like, I don't say that in a derogatory way. It is normal for us as cybersecurity people, as risk-aware people, right? It is natural for us as risk-aware people to want to do that, because I just mentioned how burnout happens in our industry. We are charged with protecting the environment. The less time that exists for that vulnerable piece of software to exist out there, the better off I am. Right? So absolutely, I'd love to have a patch. Most of you thought I was like leading you into a trap. I'm not answering, Neil. I'm not going to look like an idiot in front of the stream. No, but it's true. That's what we want. But that's not reality. It truly is the dilemma of patching. And this is where a risk-based approach comes in. You'll find that in cybersecurity, almost everything boils down to a risk-based approach. What is your risk, right? If you patch now, what system are you going to take down, right? So let's talk about that scenario for a second. Do you know what helps inform that decision? Intelligence. Do you know what type of intelligence you need to understand if a patch will bring down a system or a group of systems? You need an accurate, up-to-date, and thorough asset inventory to include computers, network equipment, and software. Everybody's got that, right? Everybody's got that, right? I know most of you are like, I'm solid, yo. I got this. I got this. And therein introduces the dilemma of patch management, right? Because once you start to realize the amount of intelligence that you need to make risk-informed decisions across your enterprise, you start to realize some of the gaps you have in back to the basics of cybersecurity, right? One of the conversations I enjoyed with John yesterday in the green room before he came on the stream yesterday was he talked about how, like, whether we're talking about AI, OT, right? You know, servers in a data center, cloud infrastructure, or 1984 AS400s. The reason that the principles of cyber are still strong today as they were then is because they really are the easiest and best ways to secure an enterprise. As challenging as that may be, Qui-Gon Jinn, you really need to rack and stack. I'd almost create a risk type of system. You know, obviously production has its own risk category. Your OT environment has its own risk category. You know, software may have its own risk category. You have, you know, user workstations may have its own risk category. And you almost have to build different SLAs based on those risk categories, right? So one thing that I'm a fan of, right, is on critical, external, exploitable business systems, right? So it is critical to the company, meaning it generates revenue. It provides some critical service uptime, right? Something that's critical to the company. It is externally facing to the internet. There is a proof of concept code in the wild. It is actively being exploited by adversaries in the internet. That should be patched within hours. That should be patched within hours. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I would challenge you that you should be able to get any business leader to sign off on that. Right? I think that's more than fair, because then if we flip it back around, if we're talking about a dev or a QA system, right, that's buried in a lab somewhere that rarely gets used, only gets turned on once a month, that can get patched with best efforts, right? BSEC, good to see you. Hopefully you're doing all right coming out of the hurricane. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is to think about vulnerability management from a risk-based approach to that. Jerry and the team from Simply Cyber coming in hot over on YouTube. Hopefully we'll see you on some of the other platforms too. Good to see you, buddy. I miss you. Miss talking to you. Miss talking to you. So that's what I would encourage you to do. Take a risk-based approach, vulnerability management. Like, we will, I say it again, right? We will never, ever not have vulnerability issues. We will never, ever not have vulnerability issues at all. Relative Ash over on Twitch says, just wanted to say thank you for all you do, Neil. Saw your YouTube videos with David and went and added your channel. I love your insight, knowledge, keep up the good work. Thank you very much. I appreciate you as well. Do you think business skills would be helpful when you are a beginner in cybersecurity, currently studying management information systems, and I love both business and technical side? Yes, this is one of my biggest things that I talk about. You absolutely, unequivocally should be learning business at any point in time in your career. Please. It is, we talk about it very, very frequently, right? I think we could go on and on and on about it, but the hands down answer is unequivocally yes. Like, let's think about this vulnerability conversation we just got done having, right? When you talk about a risk-based approach, the way that I mentioned, right, having that risk-based approach, you have to be able to communicate with leadership on that risk-based approach. Right? And so understanding the business value, understanding the business need, understanding how and what is important to the business is incredibly important for you, whether you're a beginner or not. And let me give you a real world example of this, right? I do fundamentally hear from folks. I do fundamentally hear from folks who are new to the industry who say, well, I'm new. Who's going to listen to me? And I think that's where you mess up. You'd be surprised how many people love listening to new folks. First of all, you got fire. It may be sad to hear, but there are a lot of old cats in our industry who just don't have the fire anymore. Back to the burnout conversation we talked before, right? Back to the burnout conversation we talked before. There's a lot of people who've been in this industry for a minute who are incredibly burnt out. Want to keep saying hi to my Simply Cyber folks who are coming in over on YouTube. I appreciate seeing you. Have no doubts you learned some awesome information from Jerry. Stay awesome, buddy. Glad to see you guys here. We're doing our typical Friday morning AMA. Good to see everybody. Feel free to drop those questions, comments into chat. Right? They've been in this industry for a while. They're burnt out. And so we love to get the opinions of the new folks. Anybody remember Star Wars? Anybody remember, I think it was Revenge of the Sith, right? So Obi-Wan's in there with Yoda and the younglings. And no. It was the second one. It was Attack of the Clones, or Revenge of the Clones, right? It was Revenge of the Clones. And Obi-Wan's in there with Yoda. And he's like, he presents Yoda this map. And he's like, Yoda, I've got this map. There's supposed to be a world here, but there's no world here. And Yoda goes, ha, ha, ha. Obi-Wan has lost the planet. How embarrassing. Ha, ha, ha. Does anybody want to help him? And then the youngling comes up and says, obviously somebody deleted it from the Jedi archives. Duh. Most of you probably don't, may have glossed over that, but that's exactly what happens in cyber sometime. Like it or not, that's what happens in cyber. And so we definitely need the opinions. Thanks, Callie. I appreciate that. You're looking out for me. So there we go. Updated Callie. Thank you. Right? So we definitely need the opinions of the young folks. Please come in here with your fire. And so absolutely don't be ashamed of your opinions. Now listen, your opinions are going to be drastic. Your opinions are going to be way out there compared to, other stuff. And that's okay. Really, that's totally fine. We still want to hear them. But at the same time, the more that you can take those opinions and relate them specifically to business challenges that we have in cyber, the absolute better off you are. The absolutely better off you are. And so absolutely, I do highly encourage it. Annie over on YouTube says, anyone here put business-based projects on their resume that help them enter cyber and IT? Absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, this goes back to one of the questions we had earlier, right? When we talked about interview stuff and talked about knowing your audience, right? Right? When you put that business-related stuff on there, if you're going for a technical role, put the business-related stuff on there that is relevant to those technical roles. Explain how you would have talked about that technical issue in a business sense to stakeholders, right? I think sometimes we get so caught up with resumes, especially when we talk about technical resumes, that says, no, I've got to have code snippets and all this technology and stuff on my resume, when in reality, your resume is supposed to tell a story. And the story that you're trying to tell with that business experience is, hey, I had business experience from X. Here's how I communicated business value to leadership. Because believe it or not, that is valuable. If I looked at a resume at any point in time in my career and I saw that somebody knew how to communicate business value in a technical role, that weighs more than any technical skill. Because, and this is going to floor some of you. It is easier for me to teach you how to hack than it is for me to teach you how to be a human. I can't teach you how to communicate, and I can't teach you how to have business skills, but I can teach you to hack like nobody's business. So if you came to me with business skills, teaching you the technical stuff's easy. Super easy after that. It is a travesty if you ignore putting the business skills on your resume. Right? Absolutely unacceptable. Heading over to LinkedIn for some questions. Abdi over on LinkedIn says, as an infrastructure support tech, patching is an everyday thing for me, working and seeing vulnerabilities. How can I make important decisions about putting the business at risk? Oh, how can I make important decisions without putting the business at risk? I'm glad I reread that one. I was like, what are you great question. So you work in patching all the day. You see the vulnerabilities. You want to know, how do you make important decisions without putting the business at risk? Let me ask you this. Do you understand the business objectives? When I say, do you understand the business objectives, have you gone to read the 10K? Right? Things like that. Like when we talk about understanding the business objectives, that's what I think you need to be focused on, is, do you actually understand how the business works? Do you understand how the business makes money? Then once you understand how the business makes money, you can then take that knowledge about how the business makes money and look at the vulnerabilities you're seeing and say, aha, can I help the business make a business-based informed decision about the things that I'm seeing? If you own the vulnerability management process, and you can come to a business owner and say, hey, listen, I know you just got a vulnerability management report. It's got 10,000 vulnerabilities on there, but I have personally looked through these 10,000 vulnerabilities, and you only need to fix these 4. And you only need to fix these 4 because these 3 are on your production system, and there's a vulnerability that is being exploited in the wild right now. And this 3rd one is coming from a supply chain that was using an attack 3 years ago. So your application is at risk today. And I know your application produces $10 million a day by selling widget X out on the internet. So I think you're at the risk of losing $10 million a day if you don't patch these 4. Forget these other 10,000, but patch these 4. Any business owner that turns you away after having that conversation with them is an idiot. It's nothing on you, has nothing to do with anything else. That person is just an idiot. Because if you can take 10,000 vulnerabilities and reduce them to the 4 that they need to patch today that have a direct impact monetarily on their business, you, my friend, have just well exceeded how much your salary is on a yearly basis. Hands down. That is the value that you can bring to an organization. Like, that's how you need to be thinking about that. That's how you need to be thinking about that. Exactly. This right here, right? The idea is to reduce the scope of the attack. Hands down. All right, another one from LinkedIn, and then I'll head back over to YouTube and Twitch. Keep the questions coming. I'm not going to pronounce your name. I apologize, Saluvi. I totally just tried to pronounce your name. Hey, Neil, I'm a big fan of your cyber streams. Thank you. As I've learned a lot in the past years, I hope your health is better and better. Keep up the awesome work. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. My health is good. I'll share this. We're middle of the month of July. Yeah, we're middle of the month of July. In 45 days, I'm hoping to have the first biopsy that I've had in 2 years. And I'm hoping, for hope's sake, a lot of good stuff comes out of that biopsy in 45 days. Obviously, I'll keep everybody posted. But, you know, we had a good conversation with a doctor last week when we had treatment. I think it was last week or week before, whatever it was. He's optimistic. We got a biopsy coming up in the future, and it's going to be awesome. I'm excited for it. On the flip side, golf is rocking. I've got some massive tournaments coming up in the next couple of weeks. We can hit those if you guys are super interested in that. Disco Tuna over on Twitch says, we need NIST for the crypto community. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, and regulation is a good thing. Regulation is a good thing. We need regulation for adoption. Like it or not, a certain amount of regulation is required for adoption. This gets back to risk management. As much as I give Jerry shit for TPRM, and I'll continue to give Jerry and anybody else shit for TPRM, right? Risk-based management is what companies make decisions on. Whether it's hiring you, patching, you know, a system, right? Whether it's how many analysts do you have on the front lines, whether it's buying that EDR, that DLP, whether it's pursuing ISO 27001, you know, whatever the case is, it is all a risk-based fundamental decision. And so if you want companies to adopt crypto as a technology, I'm not talking about NFT bros, I'm not talking about, you know, pump and dump scans. I'm talking about crypto as a technology. And I do have, if anybody's interested, I do have a use case. I've run into one company that is actually using blockchain in cybersecurity, mind you. This is a cybersecurity company that's using blockchain in a super awesome and nifty way. I'm happy to talk about it if there's interest in that. But to get that level of technological advancement, you have to have some regulatory body. Look at what's happening with AI. Right? Because people are starting to put rules and laws and regulations around it, and because data privacy is becoming such a hot button topic, businesses feel like it's okay to flock to use it. Why? Because they're going to have their risk profile mitigated by going and adopting AI. Right? And so I absolutely agree with you. We do need this for the crypto community. Sounds like an awesome project for one of you to take on. It doesn't require a PhD, and it doesn't require somebody in government to make suggestions on a NIST document. Please go out there and do it. Anybody in this community could do it. Anybody in this community can do it. Right? So absolutely, go out there. I mean, go create your NIST document. I think it's awesome. This one coming over from YouTube, Code Hive Network says, bro. I love that. I love when people are like, bro. I've heard bro. I've been called bro in a question, and I've been called brah in a question before too. I don't know which one I like better, but I've heard both of them, right? Bro, I have a question. Experience matters or knowledge? Sucky answer, they both matter. Right? It's a balancing act. I'll use my golf analogy, right, on this one, right? What matters, speed or accuracy, right, in my golf swing? Well, they both matter. I have to have speed to get the ball a certain distance. If I don't get the ball a certain distance, then I can't make it to the green in enough shots. Right? But I need accuracy because if I've got a 40-yard dispersion pattern, I'm never going to hit the green anyway. The question really becomes, when do you need it? At what point in time of the journey you're on? Right? Because sometimes you need knowledge and sometimes you need experience. If you're brand new to the industry, regardless of whether it's a technical role or a non-technical role, nothing beats knowledge. You may think that nothing beats experience because you're trying to get your first job. But how can you even claim to get experience if you have no knowledge? So you have to develop knowledge first and build a foundation for what you know and what you don't know. And then you can bring in the experience. But then as you get older, you may start to develop a lot of experience and you may hit a ceiling. Right? And that ceiling may stop you. Not because you have a lack of experience, but because you have a lack of knowledge. When I was running pen testing teams when I got out of the Air Force, I knew that I wanted to be a CISO. And I knew that I was going to hit a ceiling in pen testing. There are no paths to go from offensive red team to CISO. I said it, I'll upset some of you. The two easiest paths to CISO are GRC, there I said it, and security operations. That's it. Don't get it confused with exceptions to the rule. That's why they call it a rules, because it's an exception. But those are the two paths to being a CISO. And so I knew that at some point in time, I had to leave my hacking roots behind if I wanted to be a pen tester. So I hit that ceiling. I hit that ceiling when I built a $10 million ARR pen testing business. And I was like, okay, we're done. We need to get more knowledge so that we can get more experience. And so that's when I sought out PwC, got in on Big Four Consulting. That's when I went to go to Abbott to lead the security team, and the rest is history. So you have to balance that cycle of knowledge, experience, knowledge, experience, knowledge, experience, and you have to use that like steps on a ladder. You have to use that like steps on a ladder to get you to your goal. Just like you would, just like an exploit, right? You're going to pop a box, but chances are you're going to have to pivot and laterally move inside of a network to get to the domain controller or the PCI environment or something like that. And that's the same thing that you have to think about when it comes to your career. You're going to go here, 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 and boom, you're at your end goal. Right? And so they both matter. The challenge will always be, at what order do you need to do them in? Experience breeds knowledge that no theory can relay to you. I do like that experience does breed knowledge. Like, experience is the teacher of life. Experience is the teacher of life, without a doubt. You can't really, there is no substitute for experience, but foundations are built on knowledge. Let's say that. There is no substitute for experience, but foundations are built on knowledge. I need an Oprah meme for this one. You get a shout out. You get a shout out. Everybody gets a shout out. Are positions like ISO or ISSM technically GRC or more security operations? I've been in ISO, only do GRC. I think I would still equate ISO more over to GRC related roles. You know, there's an eternal debate that rages on, and feel free to drop your thoughts on this in chat, whatever platform you're on, right? You know, information security versus cybersecurity. Some people would argue that if you're on the GRC side, you're more on the information security side. If you're more on the security operations side, you're on the cybersecurity side. Some people argue it's the difference between whether you're protecting something technically or protecting something, you know, technological. I hate the debate because The fact that we don't have a taxonomy around it and we leave it up to the masses to determine absolutely holds fruition, that the only people who are deciding what's cyber and what's information security are people with the egos at play. Right? At the end of the day, right, if you got people who are saying, well, no, you're not in cyber because you're in GRC, that's an egotistical statement. You only do GRC, you're not real cyber. That's an ego conversation. I would say that in an information security officer role, your role is protecting the organization. Those roles are typically focused on policy updates, policy enforcement, adherence to standards, and things like that. And so in that light, they are more in line with governance, risk, and compliance, right? Rarely do you see ISSO roles. When we say security operations, we think about things in an operational construct, right? Are you logging in every day, looking at a monitor, watching for blinky red lights, filing tickets, moving the bits across the wire to allow the data to come in and out of the network? I would say that's probably the distinction that I would make between those two types of roles. Oh. God, I love Friday morning chats. I absolutely love Friday morning chats. I answered the bro question already. Harry over on Twitch had one. Morning, Neil. I'm 36 with 2 young kids, and I'm planning a big move in 1 year's time. My current career will be relegated to an ancillary income, so I'm about to start a cybersec boot camp. Oh, geez. You said the dirty word. You made me say the dirty word on stream. Hoping to get into cybersec sales. Any advice? It will be my first exposure to cybersec. I have experience in sales, logistics, and management. God, you're doing a boot camp? Oh, man. I have a lot of not very nice things to say about boot camps. Boot camps. Yes, Jazzy, I'm Neil Bridges. For those who don't know, if you're just tuning in new, I'm Neil Bridges. It's nice to see you today. My pause is as I try to decide how much on this soapbox and into this rabbit hole I want to go on boot camps, right? Let me preface this by I've spent a lifetime in cybersecurity education. What does that mean? I was an instructor in the Air Force. I helped build the Air Force's first functional training unit for cyber for U.S. Cyber Command. I taught, offensive hacking for the NSA. I taught the offensive hacking course that led to what's referred to as RIOT, the Remote Interactive Operator Training, for those who are in the military and understand what that means, right? It is the pipeline feeder for all folks who ultimately go to be operators at the agency. I've taught buffer overflow exploits. I've taught, ASLR bypass. I've taught all sorts of zero-day creation. I've built the blue teaming, pen testing, threat hunting module for the 92nd Air Force, right? I've taught all of the curriculum. If you talk to Josh Mason went through my curriculum as he was going to be an officer pilot or pilot officer to a cyber officer, right? So he's gone through my curriculum. I've built all that curriculum. I was a SANS instructor for the SANS Institute for 5 years. This was when SANS, OffSec, and CompTIA, and EC Council were the only 4 names on the marketplace, right? So I was a SANS instructor for 5 years. I've taught next to the greats of like John Strand, Bryce Galbraith, Dave Shackelford, Ed Scotus, right? You name it, I've taught with them, next to them, and in the same orbit as them, right? I've was chief content officer for INE. Helped develop a lot of the strategy moving forward with the curriculum that they're working on now. I've been in education my entire life, right? And so when I tell you that boot camps are a scam, it's because boot camps are a scam, right? I fundamentally believe that boot camps are a scam. Most boot camps, and again, I'm not talking about the exceptions to the rules. I'm talking about the mass marketing and exploitation of desperate professionals looking to leave whatever scenario they're in and trying to get into a better scenario for their family, for their kids, for their lifestyle, whatever the case is. Right? And so the majority of boot camps are scams because they make you pay a money and then they say, cool, now that you paid us this money, go learn this you'll go learn this curriculum on Sec Plus. We're not going to pay for the actual curriculum, or maybe we will, but we're not going to actually pay for the exam. You got to go figure out the exam on your own. Right? And then you still have to go take the exam, and still basically you're just getting a Sec Plus or a Pen Test Plus or CEH or, you know, any of the other things that exist out there, right? And so I did an exercise. I wish I could find the video of this one. I did an exercise where NC State, and I love NC State. My dad went to NC State. My dad was a double E at NC State. My sister got her PhD at NC State. We're huge NC State, you know, fans in this family, but NC State was offering a cybersecurity boot camp. The wife and I sat down and we looked at the curriculum they were offering at NC State, and we went through YouTube and we went and found every video on YouTube that you could find for free that would teach you exactly what they were teaching you at NC State for their boot camp. For free on YouTube. That, folks, is why I trash on boot camps, because they are a money grab. They are absolutely a money grab. Please, for the love of all that is cyber, please do not take a boot camp. There are 901 ways that you can do the exact same thing, and it will cost you a fraction of the price. Please. Okay. Woosah off the boot camps. Back to your other question, right? Cybersec sales. Like, I think if you want to get into cybersec sales, that's awesome. Please. We need more smart people in cybersec sales. And there's a lot of money to be had in cybersec sales. Some of you, like going back to what I said at the beginning of the stream, it's okay to admit that you're in this for money. It is totally okay to admit that you're in this for money. Guess what? There's a boatload of money in cybersec sales. Sales engineering, selling software, selling security technology. Why do you think that there's so many people in cybersec sales? Because they make a F-load of money doing it, right? So I think that's a great path to go on. I think, you know, getting that baseline of cybersecurity knowledge is huge. I do think you need to get that baseline of cybersecurity knowledge to be successful in cybersec sales. Kudos to you for moving in that direction. If you need an assist, make sure you like and follow the page. But occasionally we'll have Jeff Goals, who is a good friend of mine. He's been in sales his entire life. We'll have him on an Old Guy Monday or an Old Guy Wednesday at some point in time in the future. Make sure you tune in, you ask questions during that, because he'll be able to give you tons and tons of advice on cybersecurity sales. Kathy Chambers from Anti-Siphon, good to see you and hear from you as well. If you get a chance to see or talk to John, please pass my gratitude over to John for everything that he has done. Tell him Neil says hi. Miss chatting with him. Oh, great question, Harry. Keep it coming. I answered that one about the interview already. I answered that one about the sequel map. Wow, look at this. Here we go. Here's one from 9739SF. Any advice on getting in the defense industry from the business side of cyber? Learn government contracting. That's the easiest way to get into the business side of defense industry. Go learn contracting. That's the best way. There's lots of money to be had there too. Lots of money to be had on that side too. Cyrex says, what technical skills experience do you recommend to get before moving into management? I'm looking at a SOC management role. However, I don't feel like I have enough experience in more specialized role. Management is weird, right? Management is weird. You will never be ready for management. You will never be ready for management. I God, I have a lot to digest on the management side of things, right? No amount of skills that you learn coming up through your specialty will prepare you for management or leadership as a whole, right? And I do make the distinction between management and leadership, right? I do make the distinction between management and leadership. Most of you, this will probably floor a bunch of you. A bunch of you are probably leaders right now and you don't even know it. Bunch of you are probably leaders in your community, in your endeavors, in your company, and you probably don't even know it. That's how easy leadership can be for some people. Management is different, and management requires a different mentality. And I don't necessarily think that there's a lot of skills that you can actually teach somebody on how to be a good manager. The number one thing that I think that will railroad you, that will nosedive your career in management more than anything else, is a failure to understand your people. Divine Access in Twitch said it about the same time I did, right? Not listening to your folks. When you are a manager, your opinion doesn't mean shit. Let me say that again. Your opinion doesn't mean shit. As management, you are all about leading people. You are all about leading people. And part of leading people is to hire, foster growth, and empower the smartest people working for you. If you are, listen, this is gonna stab some of you in the heart. That's why you come here, right? You come here for the pain. If you are not hiring people smarter than you, you're failing as a manager. I'll say that again. If you are not hiring people smarter than you, you're failing as a manager. And so to that extent, I do believe that management is more a people skill than anything else. And I do agree, some of what Divine Access says is that anybody can do a management position. Not everybody can do it well. And I don't think, I saw somebody on YouTube, I think it was, I thought I saw it come through the screen, right? You need years of SOC, experience before you can manage a SOC. I disagree with that. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, right? I don't fundamentally think that years of experience equate to management. There are several people that I know who are excellent managers who don't know anything about technology, who don't know anything about security operations, who don't know anything about the security org. I worked for a CISO one time who was great politically, great at handling the people, fundamentally understood risk, but didn't know F all about security operations, hacking, the technology side of things, anything. You know what he did? He kept me and the security architect in his office almost 24/7. And we spoke. And everybody knew that we had the authority to speak on his behalf and that he empowered us because he ensured that our voices were heard, that everybody knew that we had the expertise to be in the positions that we were in, and that he trusted us. That right there is what makes management. Not years in a SOC, not years in a security organization, none of that stuff. Hiring smart people, getting out of their way, letting them do their job, and empowering them and giving them trust. And so if you're asking yourself what experience you need to move into management, let me ask you this. Do you have the experience to be humble? Do you have the humility to get out of the way and let your subordinates tell you what to do? Think about that one for a minute. Think about that one. Are you humble, and do you have the humility to let somebody who works for you tell you what to do? If you don't, management's not ready for you, and you're not ready for management. Good question, though. I love that. Trey says, with your background, would you recommend staying in cyber as a government contractor or go to the private sector? Depends on what your motivations are. Depends on what your motivations are. I miss the government for the mission. When I got out, listen, I got forced out. In 2013, I couldn't pass a PT test. I'd blown out my right knee, doing PT. In true military medical fashion, I go to the doctor, my knee is swollen. You can tell like something is really messed up. I could tell, like, I'm not a doctor. And doctor moves it around and it hurts. And he's like, you'll be fine. Here's 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. Go to the gym, strengthen it up. You'll be fine. 3 years later, I was using the shopping cart to limp around the grocery store because I could barely walk on my leg. I fell out and cracked my skull on the pavement doing a run one morning for PT because my knee gave out on me. I had some of the worst damage possible in my knee when I got out of the military. So I had to get out. I had to get out in 2013 because I knew I was going to fail a PT test and they were going to kick me out. So I got out on my own terms. But I shit you not, to this day, I miss the mission the most. Nothing beats the feel of knowing that you're making a difference for the country you love. The money's shit. As a matter of fact, I was offered a job back at the agency when I got out of the military. This was after I'd already started at FIS leading the pen testing team. They'd asked me to come back to the agency as a GS to do some work for the GS. And I kid you not, when they told me the pay, I was like, get the F out of here. There is no way that I'm coming back for that little money. Like, it was not happening. So it depends on what your motivations are. I say all that to say what your motivations are. I enjoyed the money more on the private sector side, which is why I stay on the private sector side. Plus, I get to talk about things. One of the challenges I had as a SANS instructor, when I first started teaching for SANS, I was still in the military. And I was like, I can't tell stories. SANS encourages you as an instructor to tell stories about your experiences. That's what makes good instructors is they've got real good stories to tell. And I was like, I can't tell any of my stories because all the stories I've got are classified. And they're like, well, you've got to figure out a way to tell those stories. And they put the onus on me, rightfully so. So I say all that to say, like, I get to talk about the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. In the military, I struggle to be able to talk about the things I did on a day-to-day basis. And it's not that I'm bragging or anything else like that, but it's like I don't get to educate fully folks like yourself. And I realized that when I was on the outside, I was like, now that I'm on the outside, now that I could talk about the things, speaking at conferences became a reality. Writing, articles became a reality. Writing for books became a reality. I wrote for Red Team Journal for a number of years. I wrote tons of TTP related stuff for the Red Team Journal for a number of years. All of that became possible because I left the government and came out into the private sector. And so I think that there was a lot of benefits that I personally saw by being on the private sector that I could never realize on by being in the military. And that was a lot of motivation for me as well. That was a lot of motivation for me to do as well. This is probably related to my rant about boot camps. Does that go for SANS as well as finding equivalent information for free? So I have a mixed opinion on SANS, right? And no individual person should pay for a SANS cert. I'll start with that. You, as a person, should never pay for a SANS cert. I've watched several friends metaphorically sell kidneys to be able to personally pay for a SANS cert. And most people think that a SANS cert is like OSCP, that if they just show up at the door with a SANS cert in their hand, that they're going to get a job. And that is just fundamentally inaccurate. No cert today. Today, July 12th, 2024. No cert today is a free pass to a job. Period. End of sentence. No cert today is a free pass to a job. If somebody has told you that a cert will give you a free pass to the job, run the other way. They're either lying to you or trying to steal from you. Could it have been argued when I was coming up through the ranks that SANS was a free pass? I'll admit, a lot of people looked at me because I had SANS on my resume. But again, I came up when there were only 4 major certification companies, right? SANS, CompTIA, EC Council, and OffSec. Right? That's not the case anymore. Anybody with a camera can go on Udemy and drop a class. Anybody with Teachable can create a cert. The market has been devalued. Supply and demand. There is more supply now than there ever was. And so, no, I do not think that any cert today is a free pass to a job. Which is why I say no individual person in their right mind should ever pay for a cert, ever pay for a SANS cert, specifically to this question. If a company is going to give you a training budget and you want to use that training budget for a SANS cert, 10 of 10 supports. The instructors are hands down the best. Like I've loved working for every SANS instructor I was a peer with. I've loved taking courses from every SANS instructor I've ever taken a course for. Hands down, without a doubt. But to that end, you as a person should never, ever pay for a SANS cert. I saw Tim made a post recently about SANS' stance on Red Siege. We could talk about that a little bit. I want to acknowledge that I've not been in communication with my friends and peers at SANS about SANS-related issues. I've talked to them, obviously, but I haven't talked to them about SANS-related issues since, probably about 2019, 2020-ish, somewhere in there. They did ask me to come back, and I respectfully declined coming back to teach for them. And a lot of it has to do with kind of what Tim is running into now. And this was ultimately why I chose to leave the organization. When I left the organization, was there are a handful of content creators at the top of the SANS org structure who collect royalties on courses. And the reason why some of the courses seem to have 20 and 30-year-old information is because those folks refuse to update the courses, because the instructors who update the courses then get a portion of the royalties, which then takes away from their royalties. And so SANS has eaten itself from the inside on their content. And so I can't recommend them, because I think as a business strategy, I don't support their ethos as a business strategy. So I'll leave it at that. I think that kind of like covers down on a lot of the aspects on SANS. Yeah, I think it's probably a good place to kind of parse it out from there. Trying to check the time. Oh, wow. We've been out here for a minute. Awesome. Well, let's do a couple more. Is cryptography a subset of penetration testing, or do they overlap? If I want to enter a cryptography domain that includes pen testing, how should I proceed? Cryptography is not a subset of penetration testing. Cryptography is a subset of security. Penetration testing is a subset of security, right? Cryptography is not a subset of penetration testing. Penetration testing, like if you were to draw a hierarchy of security, penetration testing is like at the bottom of the totem pole. Right? Higher security, GRC, security operations, incident response, threat hunting, all that stuff down at the bottom is pen testing. Right? So let's get that straight right off the bat, right? So no, cryptography is not a subset of penetration testing. Cryptography is a domain in cybersecurity. So if you want to learn cryptography, go learn cryptography. It's applicable to a lot of stuff. It's applicable to red team. It's applicable to blue team. It's applicable to GRC. Everybody should know some form of cryptography. It enhances and informs so much of what it is that we do in cybersecurity that everybody should know about it, right? Absolutely. The K bandwidth says it best, right? It's a whole realm of its own. Absolutely, 1,000%. It's a whole realm all on its own, right? It's used widely everywhere, right? So if you want to learn cryptography, go learn cryptography, right? Once you learn about cryptography, then you can start to learn, okay, if I want to break this, how do I break it? And now you're in the realm of penetration testing. Now you're in the realm of, how are adversaries using this to obfuscate their code? Now you're in the realm of malware, analysis, malware defense, malware reverse engineering, things like that. So go learn about cryptography, and then of the things that interest you, whether it's GRC or malware or pen testing or whatever the case is, then apply those knowledge of cryptography to those areas. That's the appropriate way to filter through those learnings. Yep. As you can imagine, like I said, John was my mentor at SANS. I did my first teaching with him, at, SANS Network Security 2012. I taught GCIH, right? John's got a fantastic opinion, and I wholeheartedly agree with him. All right, let's do one more. Let's do one more. Get your last questions in. I'm gonna look through the last few sets of questions and see if we can't pick one or two or three, depends on how it goes. I just accepted a promotion role at an MSSP for a senior security analyst. I'm confident in my abilities, but I've never had a support team of juniors and L2 analysts. Any advice on setting up development plans for them? Oh, I love it. What I would do, and again, evaluate if as a leader, they're going to allow you to have some money, and I doubt it. But if you can understand what the training budget is, that'll kind of inform whether you need to get creative or whether you're going to have money to give them for development. But in terms of development, I'd go back to kind of our thought process around knowledge versus experience, right? Think about things that you can have them do. Nobody likes to sit at the glass and look at alerts, but there's fundamental value in sitting at the glass and looking at alerts. So be understanding that they have to sit and look at alerts, but figure out what that pathway is as they look at alerts, triage the alerts that they're getting, and move on so that they can see what some of that L2 role or that L3 role or that threat hunting role is that they would eventually move into, and help them see the path. I think when we talk about leadership and mentorship in any role, but specifically with very hard and tedious jobs like security analyst roles, right? Sometimes there's a mentality of like, oh, well, I sat on the glass and watched alerts and was a ticket monkey for 3 years. So therefore that's all you're going to be for 3 years is a ticket monkey, right? I would implore you not to think about that, right? Just because you did it that way does not mean it was the right way, and does not mean that everybody who came in after you has to do it that way either. And so I highly implore you not to inflict the same pain upon the people who are coming behind your shoe steps that you went through. Look at what you went through. Pick the good parts of what you went through and pick the bad parts of what you went through. There was probably value to sitting and looking at the glass and triaging alerts and moving alerts through the process, but try to figure out how you can make it less painful and make it more of an educational experience. That's what I think makes for good development plans, is when you can develop past the atrocities that you went through as you were coming up through that. Give them a sight for the future. MSP life is rough. When I talk about consulting being hard, I view MSSP life as being harder than consulting life. Right? It is the help desk of cybersecurity. Like it or not, it is the help desk of cybersecurity, being a SOC analyst for an MSSP. And so it's easy to get burned out. It's easy to not be able to see the forest for the trees. And so any development plans that you develop for them should give them a hope for the future, should help them see what's possible later on in their career, should help them see what avenues and pathways they can move into security. That's what will make you a good leader amongst those people who are following up in your footsteps. Congratulations, that's an important role. I'm glad you got it. Do something awesome with it. The people who are coming up behind you are depending on you for their success. Don't let them down. Don't let them down. Please consider this my final question. Are cyber penetration testers experts in web security, cloud security, etc.? In general pen testing, can they break into any area, or are they... there is no such thing as experts in this industry. I'll say that first and foremost. There's no such thing as experts. I'm not an expert. Not an expert. There are no experts in this industry. This industry changes too fast. This industry changes too fast for there to be experts. That's not a slant on people. I think there's tons of incredibly smart people in this industry. Jerry's one of them, right? John's one of them, right? There's incredibly smart people in this industry, but nobody's an expert. Nobody is an expert in all things cybersecurity. It is impossible in this space to be an expert. Right? And so penetration testers specialize in areas. And I'll give you an example, right? If we were to look at some common domains of penetration testing, right? Network, social, web, OT, wireless, right? Just pick 5 random ones, right? The only one that I couldn't do well was web. Anything JavaScript, PHP related was not my forte, right? I had to rely on other people to help me with that because it was just not my area. But when it came to the others, I was an expert. See what I did there? I'm just kidding. I was awesome, right? I led some of the first efforts in the military to do OT hacking, right? I taught the OT hacking course, built the OT hacking course. And then, kudos, right? CEO from Dragos, if you know him, he came in and he blew it out of the water, right? He made a SANS course out of it. He pioneered it inside the Air Force and then got out and pioneered it with Dragos on the outside, right? Right? But that was his specialty, right? He specialized in that, right? I specialize in social engineering. When I say that is I led an engagement one time when I was at PwC, and I got all my pen testers in a room, and we built our pretext and everything else, and we executed the pen test, and it was a social engineering pen test where we had spoofed an Italian domain, or we'd spoofed a university domain using an Italian domain because the Italian domain ended in .it. And so we called up everybody in the directory on the university and said, hey, we're from university.it, your IT department, we need you to download this patch. As we went around the room, as I gave everybody an opportunity to execute that social engineering engagement, we got to one kid who literally was like, Neil, I can't do this. He was like, I can't get on the phone and lie to an innocent staff member to get them to click on a link. He fundamentally had a moral and ethical problem with that. That didn't make him less of an expert in the other areas that he was good at. He just didn't specialize in social engineering. So I say all that to say, like, change some of the words that you use. I would say that penetration testers all have specialties. Some are awesome in their specialty and some are not. That doesn't make them any less of an expert, doesn't make them any less savage, doesn't make them any less effective, right? Everybody has a skill, and everybody's skill is different. Great question. This is a good one. Did you prefer the mission with defense or intelligence agencies, or were they so similar you didn't notice? They were so similar I didn't notice. When I was coming through pre-Snowden days. The reason I make that distinction is because obviously Snowden changed a lot of stuff. When I was coming up, you had 24th Air Force, and 24th Air Force reported to U.S. Cyber Command. And there was a 4-star general that sat at the very tippy top of U.S. Cyber Command. His name was General Alexander. At the same time, he was presidentially appointed as director of the NSA. Snowden made everybody aware of this and talked about the conflict of interest it was. And it was the first time that I had heard anybody outside the military talk about the conflict of interest, because we all knew it was a conflict of interest inside the military. And here's why. This is going to get really deep. If you're taking notes, this is a fantastic time to take some notes, because we're going to do a little bit of law theory here on this. Military, I'm talking suitors, right? Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, everybody. They operate under a legal code called Title 10. This Title 10 code is what legally allows them to go to war. That's why, again, heaven forbid they shoot somebody in an area of operations, they don't go to jail for it, right? Because they're operating with a legal authority with which to conduct warfare. And so those things fall under warfare. Title 10. Intelligence agencies, specifically the NSA, operate under different titles. The CIA operates under Title 18. The NSA operates under Title 50. The Title 50 mission is an intelligence gathering mission. It allows them legally to do foreign surveillance, meaning outside the United States, on foreign people for the source of intelligence gathering. And Title 18 for the CIA allows them to do counterintelligence, right? So they can counter other countries' intelligence efforts against the United States. All of these are legal codes that basically provide an umbrella for illicit and illegal activities. There's no short way to put it. It's to conduct illegal activities. What would otherwise be illegal? So I, as a military person, I raised my hand. I was sworn in. I had a military rank. I was behest to military generals. I was behest to the military chain of command, DoD, Department of Defense. When I worked for the agencies that I worked for, we were on loan to the NSA, meaning the NSA couldn't hire enough civilians to do it, number one. Number two, the two types of civilians that the NSA can hire are either GS people, so general schedule, typical government civilians, or contractors. Little known fact, both of those have different capabilities when it comes to the title codes that they're allowed to operate under. Civilians can operate under Title 50, but can't operate under Title 10. Contractors can't do either. See how this starts to get really super confusing, right? So as a blue suitor, as an Air Force person, working for 24th Air Force, working for U.S. Cyber Command, I was effectively working for General Alexander. But the NSA would take us on loan to do NSA-related missions. And so we had to make a distinct distinction when we got our op awards. Was this a Title 10 mission that supported our DoD objectives, or was this a Title 50 mission that supported our NSA objectives? And this is where it got super convoluted. Because how do you know that hacking into a computer inside of Russia or Syria or anything else for that matter, how do you know whether that's a wartime effort or an intelligence gathering effort? And the fact of the matter was, we didn't know. We didn't care at the time. We wouldn't know, and I kid you not, there were several people on my team who would run their ops, and then they'd get a presidential letter thanking them because they helped some major operation that none of us knew what was going on. And that's how compartmentalized the entire process was. And so I enjoyed the mission. I didn't always know, God, this is going to sound horrible. I didn't always know who I was doing the mission for, but I did enjoy knowing that I was at least working for the United States and making the United States a safer place. So, with that being said, thank you all so very much for joining me today. Thanks very much to the Simply Cyber crew for coming and hanging out with me. As always, don't forget we got a new show every other Thursday in the afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. security data operations. It is a slightly targeted stream that's very much specifically geared towards the convergence of security operations and data operations, and really what it means in a modern day security team. Yesterday, go check out yesterday's VOD. We had a CISO from ALS Global on there as we talked through kind of his challenges building security teams in a data diverse world, given his global footprint. Make sure you hit that exclamation point socials in chat. Check out all the social media stuff. I do appreciate everybody who sends me DMs and supports my golf journey over on my Instagram page. It means the world to me. I appreciate you. With that being said, I hope all of you had an awesome week. I hope you have a continuously awesome rest of the day for those who are still working. For those who are going home, enjoy the evening, enjoy the weekend. And whether you're on the red side or the blue side or still deciding, keep learning. And we'll see you next time.